News Nation's Libbey Dean live at the White House tonight with a look at the impacts of the shutdown, what is needed to end the stalemate, and what President Trump, who just spoke aboard Air Force One, had to say moments ago. Libbey.
Natasha, President Trump returning here to the White House after some major developments this week with the government, of course, being shut down, but making some news tonight tied to the war in Ukraine, declaring the U.S. will not provide Ukraine with those long-range Tomahawk missiles at this moment. That's what the president says, but he also said that that decision could ultimately change. Now, that announcement actually comes after the Pentagon reportedly gave the green light to the White House to send those missiles to Ukraine, leaving that final decision ultimately up to the White House and the president, who is now saying that's not the plan as it stands.
We're fighting it out, and it's been a tough war for Putin. He's lost a lot of soldiers, maybe 1 million. That's a lot of soldiers.
So those weapons, those Tomahawk missiles, that is something Ukraine and Volodymyr Zelensky have really been pushing for, because they want to have that range that those weapons provide, that 1,500-mile range, giving Ukraine the ability to hit those deep targets inside Russia. It seems President Trump not willing to give those at this moment. Natasha.
I appreciate those new updates. And Libbey, we also mentioned we are now into day 33 of the shutdown. What is the latest on the millions of Americans being affected by SNAP benefits running dry?
Yep, heading into another week here of the government being shut down, Natasha, and the effects really being felt across the country, as we've been speaking about. Those nearly 42 million Americans impacted as SNAP benefits ran dry on Saturday. No funding solution in sight here, as the Trump administration argues they can't tap in to the Department of Agriculture's emergency fund, despite those two judges ruling that the Trump administration needs to do that. But even if they did tap into that emergency fund, that $5 billion contingency fund, it wouldn't cover the nearly $8 billion needed to ultimately fund the month of November for the entirety of the SNAP program in November. Now, President Trump did suggest tonight there's not a plan in place yet to move the funds when he was speaking with our Kelly Meyer.
Well, all we have to do is open up the country. You know, we voted 14 times to open the country. We have voted 14 times to open the country, and they vote to keep it closed. All they have to do is vote to open the country.
Now, Democratic Senator John Fetterman argues that the government needs to be reopened, telling News Nation on Saturday that people do not deserve to suffer over partisan politics.
This all has to end. At this point, for me, it's entirely inappropriate, and it's always a terrible tactic. We might have different priorities. I mean, I absolutely think we should, maybe find a way to work forward to extend our tax credits, but that doesn't mean it justifies, in my opinion, for seizing our government and holding it hostage for now it's over a month.
So senators are expected to return here to Washington in less than 48 hours to see if a deal can be struck. But, of course, we haven't seen those negotiations happening really on either side. And we've also seen, of course, that funding bill continue to fail time and time again. We'll see if that happens again on Tuesday, Natasha.
Yeah, I think you said 13 failures as you were counting last night. So, Libbey, there's a lot to cover tonight. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth also recently saying the Pentagon is moving quickly on President Trump's directive to restart nuclear weapons testing. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, we're getting some clarification, Natasha, tonight on how the U.S. does plan to conduct those nuclear tests, because President Trump made that directive earlier this week to the Pentagon to begin testing nuclear weapons after he saw other countries like Russia doing those weapons testing. And that led to this deluge of questions on if nuclear bombs would ultimately be detonated here in the U.S. A lot of questions about that, or if this would be more of this systems testing situation. Now, the Energy Secretary providing some clarity on Sunday.
These are not nuclear explosions. These are what we call non-critical explosions. So you're testing all the other parts of a nuclear weapon to make sure they deliver the appropriate geometry and they set up the nuclear explosion.
So the secretary, right, he is, of course, in charge of the Energy Department, which is that agency that is responsible for testing the U.S.'s nuclear weapons. And actually, the last time that we saw the U.S. conduct a test was in 1992. And there are some experts who do say, Natasha, it would take years for this testing to actually take place. But it is good to see some clarification from the Trump administration tonight on what this might look like.
I appreciate you tracking all of that. Libbey Dean live at the White House tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.